solar's becoming more and more popular. And Warren Buffett says this, he's like, this whole solar thing is going to be one of the greatest transfer of wealth that's ever happened in history. So the next 5 years, you know, those who stay in the craft, they get really good and they pick the right installer, like you said. That installer is safe. They're doing the right moves for the long haul. I'm very, very excited to watch the hundreds and thousands of millionaires that will be created in this space by doing it the right way for the customer and staying in business for the 25 years.
What up, D2D world? I am super stoked for this guest today. Longtime friend, former coworker, Mr. Aaron Lee. How are you?
Doing amazing, JP. Glad to be here.
Dude, this is going to be a cool conversation, probably mostly for us, just to rehash some stuff. But I think we're going to get some value out of it for the world. I brought you on specifically to talk about the solar industry, the state of the solar industry, and to hear how VITL's thriving in it. And hopefully, we have a lot of people we've seen the business as far as door-to-door experts. We've seen our solar clientele kind of slow down a little bit, and you're probably experiencing some of that. But before we do that, you told a fantastic story out there to the staff about your days at Vivint working. The same time Sam was there, and Sam's going to get a kick out of this. But so when did you start at Vivint?
So 2008 was my first year at Vivint.
Okay. And I think Sam sold his 400 accounts in 2012 or something. Yeah. So tell the story that you told you were a fourth year rep manager, never met the guy. You hear what?
So what's interesting is I still don't know a place that had more competition culture than Vivint Smart Home back in those days. And you saw that. It was incredible. Some of the best to ever do it. Shout out to all those that were at Vivint during that time. And I remember as a fourth year rep, my goal was always to sell over 300 accounts. And that was the year I finally did it. And I was so pumped. I thought I was the hot stuff. And then I found out someone sold over 400 accounts.
So this was before Insight or any way to know what was going on, right?
Yeah. And like 300 was, you were the best of the best if you sold over 300.
GOD, small G status for sure.
That's right. And so I fought tooth and nail to get there. And then when someone told me that someone sold over 400, I'm like, no way. Who is it? Who is it? They're like, it's this guy named Sam Taggart. And I'm like, where'd he come from? Is he a rookie? Is he experienced? And I found out he had only done it, I think, 2 years. And I'm like, there's just no way. I want to meet him. And someone pointed to me that he's like, he's here at the building. He's over there at One Stop. And when I looked down the hallway, I saw this guy in a chair, slouched over, making jokes. And he had long hair, like past his shoulders. And this is what I love about Sam. Sam is just full of energy. It doesn't matter what is said to him, done to him. He knows who he is. He's a confident individual. There's so much to learn about that. But then I went to meet him. And those who know Sam, he's funny. He's got a quirky personality. And I started to talk to him like, okay, I get why he sold what he did. He's a really cool guy. But I'm like, I was just amazed.
Yeah, what you're really saying is no way that guy can be, because he's not at the time, it wasn't your typical chiseled Vivint bro.
That's right.
Was going to go slay it out there.
Yeah. So shout out to Sam. He helped us redefine what's possible. The moment he sold 400, the next year there were several reps that did.
Yeah.
And to this day, I never passed the 400 mark. So he holds that respect. He's the man.
So a funny story so he goes out and does that at Vivint, and then this Golden Door, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell the whole story, how he started door-to-door con and all that. But just a couple weeks ago, we had something funny here at the office. We get an email from a woman that says, so every morning I'm woken up by my neighbor who gets up before the sun and starts screaming, I'm going to win an effing Golden Door and I'm going to kick blanks bitty blanks ass, right? He's like, and he just over and over and over. She says, is there any way you can disqualify him from the award? Like she found us, she searched Golden Door, she found us, she wrote a complaint about her neighbor.
That is amazing.
So
that is amazing.
True validation of doing something that drives. I mean, there's no money in it for Sam. He just created an award that people go after as kind of the benchmark. So
I'll tell you this, JP. So I've done door-to-door now for almost 20 years. And before door-to-door experts existed in what Sam created here, it was a very divisive industry where it was always us versus you. If you're a part of pest control, It's like West Side Story. You're on that side, we're on this side. And it was very divisive. People were very against each other. Shout out to Sam. He paved a way that others thought he was kind of dumb for. It was impossible. There's no way someone would want to create a community for door-to-door. There's no way alarm guys would get along with pest control and roofers with solar, so on and so forth. And, you know, I don't know how many years it's been. Been what, 6 years now?
It'll be Door-to-Door Con 8.
8, that is wild. 8 years into it, and now you watch a community where a rising tide does rise all ships.
Yeah.
From the way we've highlighted compliance, from how someone can move from this industry to that industry. And I'm grateful because, you know, our business has had a few reps introduced to those reps looking to get into solar by door-to-door experts. And to see the level of respect that they have for this university and this platform as they've entered into solar as a brand new rep, we're appreciative of our relationship with door-to-door experts. But to what Sam and you and team have built, it's pretty cool to see. Love to watch
I
it.
take no credit for building. I'm helping stabilize and go to the next level for sure. But when I met Sam this time last year to talk about my options, I said, Sam, how many verticals do you have?
Yeah,
and he's like,
wow.
I go, okay, too many, right? Like, and so
he's a creator.
Yeah, he'll if he could find a way, if like some kid was painting curbs, he'd be like,
yeah,
let's go shoot video of him and sell curb painting on the university.
I love it.
So I want to give a little color context to how we know each other, and you and I probably can sit here and nice each other to death because we did it before the cameras went on. Yeah. But my role at the time at Vivint was manager development. When you were out probably for that, probably your 8th or 9th summer, and they asked me to find a up and coming regional that I could personally influence, and so I was looking at all the people, and I'm like, Aaron Lee's the guy. When he gets back, I'm going to ask Aaron, if he wants to go through this leadership development program. And then you came back that summer, and and unbeknownst to me, they'd already tagged you to be the retail goat to go out there and figure out that piece. And so I had to go find somebody else to work with. Shout out to Rob Jackson, who grew 100% that year from working with Rob.
Rob's a complete stud.
Funny story. I'm a tangent right here in the middle of the story. I'll come back to Rob's story in a second because you'll appreciate this. And then you went off and started the retail program in San Antonio, Vivint and Best Buy. Yep. And it was great. And then I was on the side just kind of watching that go down. And then, something that was probably hard for you at the time, Blackstone was going to go spend some money on this. And so they went to Doug Barnett, who then came to me, and they basically brought us into kind of run retail, and you're the guy that you knew everybody, everything, everyone. And what I remember in that meeting, I'm like, well, has anybody talked to Aaron yet?
Yeah,
right? And they were like, well, no, but he'll be good. I'm like, well, if I was him, I would be like, that would, knowing where you were age-wise, mindset-wise, had been there, like aspirations of like, this is going to be really disappointing and upsetting for him. Yeah. And the way you handled it was just, I go home and I tell my wife, I'm like, he's either the nicest individual on the planet, or he's just scamming us all, right? and it ended up you were just a really good dude that took that in stride. And obviously, great and crazy things happen. We all learned from that stuff. But that was my first kind of realization that you were going to grow into be a tremendous leader as you are. And so that was a fun little run for sure.
Yeah, JP, dude, there's so much to take from that experience. And I shared this with you before we came on camera. I appreciated your mentorship during that time. For those that are listening, they might relate to this because they've been in this situation before. I was a door-to-door guy, and I spent my life's work becoming good at that craft. And I'll never forget, Todd Santiago and Alex Dunn came to me and said, hey, we've landed this partnership at this, what was the show down in Vegas? CES?
CES.
He's like, we met Best Buy at CES, and they're willing to give us a few stores in retail. Do you think you can go sell smart home out of a retail store?
Yeah.
And no one had done that before. And so I went down there, and, we kind of crushed what their expectations were. They flew down, and they're like, hey, if you can do this with more stores, I think we have a shot. And so we brought in more guys, and we kind of overshot the target, and we destroyed what they thought. And they're like, hold on, you got lucky. If you can go do this in a market that's not a good market for Best Buy, which was Detroit, Michigan. That was a hard place to move to. Then I think we get a national contract, and we did that. We hit all of our targets, and we really did a good job. But I remember once we did the deal with Detroit and we got this national contract, I did oversell myself. And I was the type of leader at that time where if you applied just more work and more grit to it, that's how I would solve problems. And retail, it was a different beast. It required processes and procedures and SOPs and cadences. And if those weren't made and followed, you don't survive in that type of environment without that. And so I remember when Alex Dunn said, hey, we're going to fly down with our investors, Blackstone, and we're going to bring Best Buy executives in, build a presentation, let us know how you got to where you are and where you think you can take this in 12 months. And in my mind, I'm like, they don't know who they're talking to. I'm just like the sales guy. I remember, and this is a lesson for some that might be here. If you really want to go achieve anything and you apply the work, you'll figure it out. And sometimes failing forward's how you do it. I remember that night going on YouTube, and I had never used Keynote. I had never built a presentation, and I'm like, again, I can go crush sales all day long, but I was definitely living in a world where I was being asked to play above my skill level. And that didn't stop me. I was doing a lot of things to level up and go get there. And so I was very grateful for the opportunity. I spent the full week pretty much building this presentation. I was scared as can be when I did the presentation, but we knocked it out of the park and it got us the contract. And so the reason I share that story, when I met you, you quickly came in and you helped me realize the gaps where sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And as a leader, you need to be willing to embody the quote that I love, which is you either can go really fast alone, right, or you can go far together. And I had two choices. I could have looked at you and been a little toxic, and I could have been rejecting of your coaching and counsel. You were older, you had the experience, I didn't. Or I could have partnered with you and I could have accepted your leadership as you were my leader, and we could go far together. And I knew this was bigger than both of us.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to go through that sometimes as a leader. But if I didn't do that, I now look at the company I run today, VITL. There is no way I would have learned how to run VITL as effectively as I do today if I didn't humble myself in that moment and get that journey for the 7 years we did that.
Yeah, no, it was. And then you look back, you're like, how much blood, sweat, and tears? Oh. You sweated and bled and teared more than I did, but I was like,
wild. But I learned a ton. Very grateful for the experience.
So that's the Rob Jackson story. Rob, hopefully you're listening. So this is funny. So when my mom passed, my dad and I, we sold our home in Hawaii because he's never going to go by himself. And I spending $5,000 in airfare is never a vacation for me. And so we were looking in southern Utah. And so we put an offer in this house in Hurricane and put the offer in the house. Literally within 45 seconds of submitting the offer, I get a text message from Rob Jackson. Hey,
it's Rob.
Did you just put an offer on my house?
No way. You're kidding me.
Swear to God.
Wow.
And then we negotiated in like 10 seconds over the text message, and I went another way, right? Like, I'm like, hey, Rob, there's this many houses in the area for this price, and I'm not going to pay a penny over this. And he's like, I'm not selling. I'm like, hey, peace out. and then the house I did buy, I got the final contract, and I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, David Hunter. Like, Dave Hunter? Nah, David have it under an LLC or something. Dave Hunter, Todd Peterson's business partner.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I'm at the gas station pumping gas and my phone rings, right? I'm reading the contract. It's Dave. And he's like, did you just buy my house? Like the two places we put offers in on, we actually knew the owners.
You know what's cool about that though, JP? I just shared this with you. To see you in the role that you do here at Door-to-Door Experts, your network, your experience, the influence that you've had, your career accomplishments, it's really cool to see, what you're doing here. You trying to buy a home 2 times and knowing both of the owners. Yeah. That's not an accident. I mean, you've been in this community for quite some time. That's cool.
Well, we got to get down to Hurricane. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about solar. Let's talk about VITL. And I remember I was in solar when you were exiting Vivint Smart Home, exiting retail. Not an easy decision to make. I'm sure we're not going to go down that road. I think you and I both have much more love than anything else for that experience, regardless of how it ended for either of us. Yeah. Your decision was to go to solar. I heard that. I was working with Aaron Forsman, who works with you now, and we know you were going solar, and you made a decision, and then the pivot happened. So I think people should know the whole story on how how you ended up at VITL with Tyler
Yeah.
and your decision. So maybe walk us through the exit from Vivint, where you landed, what happened, the coolness of the company in that scenario.
Yeah.
And so tell us that story.
No, appreciate that. I was at Vivint for 15 years and just so grateful for all the time that I had there. And I got to a point in my career where I'd made good money. To all those listening, make sure as you're making money in this incredible space door to door, you invest it, you take time to go have options as you get older in the industry. So I'm very grateful I did that. I was in a place where I was wise with my money and I was looking at my next step. And I knew I reached a point in my life that it was no longer about the money. It was really about the who. I'm married. I have 3 kids, 1 more on the way. Can't believe it. 4th coming up, which is crazy. But in that moment, it was more about not the what I was going to sell. And I love solar. Like I've never found a product in an industry that excites me more just because of the state it's in. But it meant way more to me to do it with the who. Who am I going to do my next 10 years with? And so when I resigned from Vivint, Tyler Bashan, shout out to him, CEO of Vital Power. When I worked with him at Vivint on and off, we just had the same type of frequency. The guy wanted to win. He had integrity like I've never experienced. And I knew no matter what we decided to do as a business, that is who I wanted to partner with to do it with. And so I approached him. He was at another company at the time.
Let's give a shout out. Shout out to Legacy Power.
Yeah, right? Shout out to Legacy Power.
They built something great too.
Absolutely. Tyler was at Legacy as one of their VPs. And what was cool is, we did a podcast with Sam a couple months ago where we talked about how the traveling channel was created by Tyler at Legacy. And he took an industry that traveling sells has existed forever. But most times how you do anything is how you do everything. If you go look at traveling sells, people go on a trip randomly. It's typically 5, guys to 1 bed. It's a mess. 1 month they do it, 1 month they don't. There's no culture. The manager kind of builds a schedule that's convenient for them and they kind of do it and don't do it. All Tyler did was took a concept, which is traveling solar cells, and he put culture and systems and processes and scalability behind it, where there was a calendar made out a year in advance. So people...
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, and it's like the simplest stuff. But then now you can go to your people and say, hey, if you can't make this trip, that is okay. There's no exception here. We don't let people come to our trip halfway through because it throws off the energy. You're either in and all in, or you're out for the month. But the good news is we're planned out a year in advance, so you can start to work your wedding, your doctor's appointments, your trips around the schedule. If you're in, you're all in. So he created a schedule. He built a team to book travel, so it was an experience. He had processes where new reps are getting their uniforms and mailed to them, and it was on their bed with a bow, with a welcome letter. It's the details, right? And so I approached him at the time and said, hey, I got a little money. I can fund us. Let's go start a company. And I don't care how big we get. I just want to work with people that we love and trust. And I want to do it the right way. And when I say the right way, I want to do onboarding the right way. I want to do training the right way, payroll the right way, retention the right way, a pay scale the right way. All the things that encompass a company that people call culture. When people say, I love who I work for, what's behind that is all the little details that make it what it is, right? And so we wanted to do that the right way. And at the time, he wasn't ready. He said no. He said no. He said no. He was like, you know what? I got too much going on here at the company I'm at. And so I went and started my own company. And shout out to the guys who followed me to go do all that. So appreciative of their loyalty and what they did to make that happen. We ran for 3 months. 3 months into it, I get this call from Tyler. And he says, you're never going to believe this, dude. Freedom Forever has reached out to me, and what's not been done in 2.5 years since Vivint Smart Home, because Vivint Smart Home was the last master dealer for Freedom Forever. And that's Freedom Forever's decided to do these master dealer contracts. They had 4 of them at the time. Shout out to Caliber was one of them, Boundless, Sunder, and Vivint Smart Home. And Vivint was the last one, and it had been 2 years that they'd allowed another master dealer. And so he called me, said, look, they want our traveling model on their platform so they can offset costs, where there's always a market that's got low volume. We're kind of like a SWAT team.
Crews there, they need to get on roofs, and yeah.
That's right. They'll deploy to certain markets to help, offset losses where their sales volume's lower. And to do this, he's like, Aaron, I cannot, you approached me 3 months ago. I don't want to do this without you. And so him and I attended that meeting together for the first time. And I'm so appreciative of our partners there with Freedom, Kylie Powell, Chad Towner, Brett Bushy, and the others. They entrusted us with a master dealer agreement that was 3 years ago. In that meeting, it took us about 6 hours to come to terms. We shook hands and VITL was created the next day.
And then you had to unwind something that you...
Yeah, Tyler I had to unwind my business. And then Tyler, again, how you do anything's how you do everything. He exited where he was, no lawsuit, friends on both sides, and good transition. So VITL's created the next day, and that was 3 years ago. What's crazy is we started with like 120 reps, and just this last month we passed 1,500 sales reps at VITL.
Yeah,
it has been so fun,
and the testament to who you are as a leader is the 120 were people that had sold for you or worked in your organization before. And so that's excellent. So let's talk about the state of solar, right? And I am not the gossipy check on social media, but if I don't know, a dozen companies have gone bankrupt in the last 24 months.
Yeah.
What do you equate that? I mean, when I left Vivint, I went and ran a solar company. It was a great experience. Took him from 30 deals a month to 300. Aaron Forsman was involved in that, and it was his,
Aaron Forsman.
He's a stud, right?
Yeah, oh, the best.
Yeah,
love that guy.
Where is he right now? He's probably at home working.
Yeah, he is.
same diehard backdrop behind him.
Yep.
But the industry, right? I remember specifically, I was getting my indoctrination in solar, and I was out on a blitz trip, and I was in North Carolina, and I finally had times to sit down with the two banks that we used to finance these 300 deals that we just sold in July, and I just was on my list to just learn about solar financing. And so I'm good enough to ask questions and not like volunteer information. So I'm learning and learning and learning, and this is literally where I start learning about M1s and clawbacks and PTO and clawbacks. And I get off the phone and I call the particular owners of the company, and I said, I land at 3 on Friday. I'm coming straight to the office. Don't leave.
Yeah.
And I went in there. I said, if we don't outsource who is installing our jobs, I'm going to bankrupt you.
Yeah.
Because I started to learn, like, if you don't get stuff on the wall, on the roof, and so with all the money that is people follow the money, and I'm going to stop monologuing here in a second. Part of it is because these salespeople put you as owners to, like, I need this price, and you go, okay, I'll beat you with volume, and you bend.
Correct.
And you bend and you bend, and then you don't beat them with volume, or your pull through rate is awful, and then you end up going BK. So, what is, in your opinion, the honest state of, not the Aaron Lee fluff version, but the honest state of solar right now that's going on? How do you see it as an owner here? Yeah,
it's a great question, and what I love is, I'm a big sports enthusiast. And when you know how to play a game, the game is really fun. And right now, I think in the solar arena, if someone is worried, they don't understand the industry and just where it is in timing. And business is a game. And when you know how to play it, it gets real fun. And so, JP, we both have had an advantage. I did security, it's been about 17 years ago when I first started. And I remember when I first started security, to give us as an example, there was thousands of retailer, like regional players in the security space. There wasn't these few dominant players. You fast forward to today, there's now a few dominant players. And so what happened from that time to this time is consolidation, and a few of the players got big enough where they created their own products. They got the pricing right, they got their warranties right, and they made the market mature. And so right now, that's just where solar is. It's in an immature state. And this is very normal. This has happened in cell phones. This has happened in internet. This has happened in TV. This has happened in pest control. This has happened in satellite. This has happened in every industry. And so right now, solar is going through that immature state, becoming a more mature industry. And I'm grateful for it. And so when you understand that, it's no longer a panic. You get excited because that's where the opportunity is. It's really trying to find the right company who's safe financially. And at the end of the day, they're doing it right by the customer, because I think that's been the hardest part for me to watch in the solar space a lot of these sales reps go and there's no compliance out there. There's no regulation. And so if they sit down with a customer that's unaware, they can kind of take advantage of that customer with what they sell them. And then if they do go bankrupt, the customer's in a really unfortunate spot.
Yep.
And so I'm a salesperson that has to have that check mark checked first. Is my company safe financially? What is their balance sheet? What is their financial situation? And if they're going to be in business for the long haul, I can go all in and I can go sell with passion. And so my opinion of the space is it's like never been a more exciting time, because just to ask you a question, if we could all go back in time before ADT or Vivint was what they are today, if we can go back at their beginning stages before the VPs were the VPs there, the CRO was the CRO there, like their beginning stage, would we all go back to get the stock that they have then what is now today? Would we all go back to get the growth, the money, the opportunity, the progression, knowing what it is today, but kind of what would be scary back then? Would we go back and join those companies? I would say yes.
Somebody might recruit solar for a living.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good story.
Yeah, I would say yes. And so right now, JP, in my opinion, that is where the space is. It has never been better.
So let me defend all those out there that are bitter, right? Is the word, but and it's where a lot of people went out and they strong armed themselves for, quote, a red line, the lowest possible price that the company will give you that you can sell on top of. And they don't realize that they're part of the problem and squeezing. I get that. And then the company goes BK and they get nothing, right?
Yeah.
Their customers get screwed. You can't go back to those customers and go, my bad, let me resell you with this one. Right. They were owed commissions and they didn't get those, and they go to another one and another one. And we're not talking about small players. I think the year I started in solar, was it Empower?
Yeah.
That like they were massive.
They were third largest.
Right. And then overnight they were gone.
Correct.
And so I don't know where Titan was in that, but they had, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember Titan started sending us invoices for like, oh, this is PTO'd 18 months ago and you're sending us invoice for a permit.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, either they're getting purchased, they're getting audited, or they're in financial trouble.
Yeah.
Right. And that took 3 years, but it ended up obviously being financial trouble. You're not going to show a recruit your balance sheet.
Yeah.
You're just going to tell them it's solid.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not an opportunity for VITL to recruit solar salespeople, but it's an opportunity for you to educate people on. I think we don't need to name names, but there are the 2 or 3 or 4 large players out there that are all going to say they're financially stable. They're all going to say that they have ethics and morals. What would you tell, if you weren't involved, right? What would you tell people to look for if you want to do solar right now?
Yeah, it's such an important question. And to highlight one thing that I would say you got to be careful of, North Carolina just made an announcement that they're going to a W-2 route. Washington's now W-2, Nevada's W-2, and we're watching the industry change to that. And so one of the models that's always, been hard to now see today is when you're a sales org and then there's an install org, it's a tug and pull for them, just like you said. And the sales rep wants all the margin. The installer is on this very thin margin business. And so, there's no alignment there. And I would find if it's a regional installer and a regional sales group, there's got to be alignment between the two. They need to know what each other's margins need to be to stay in business. And so as of recently, VITL's made a decision to sell our company to Freedom Forever so we could have that alignment. Our margins are fixed, their margins are fixed, so we win together. And it's not give us more of a baseline, give us more margin, which just puts them out of business, right? So that's first. If you're running a sales org, whoever your installer is, be aware of what they need to run a good business, to stay in business, and go find alignment with them.
Right.
I would pick one. I would try to pick, if you're doing a few, just a few, and really, really get alignment first, whoever that is. That's number one. And then number two, you do need to know what the books are. And right now, we know as an installer, since we are one of them now, we plan on being in business for 25 years. And a lot of times when solar is sold, we think it's just about glass on the roof. And that's not the case. When you sell solar, you're now responsible to service that account for 25 years.
Right.
And so a lot of installers don't bake in enough margin to take into account year 4 and year 7 of the service cost that's going to hit.
Yeah.
And in solar, there's no reoccurring revenue. So there's nothing to pay for that when those service costs hit. And so you have to keep in mind, what is the margin I need to keep up front? And we know it's 15 cents on average. If you keep 15 cents up front, that is the margin that's needed to properly service a customer over 25 years. And so I would just ask questions of, hey, help me understand what you're doing to stay in business for the 25 years. What is being kept aside to service my sales, my customers properly and effectively over the 25 years? And if you get the right responses there with some of the things I'm highlighting here, you know they're thinking about the right things.
Right.
And one thing that we did that was important to us before Freedom, came and purchased us, they gave us a chance to kind of get their financials audited. And if a company's ever willing to allow that, I think it's a smart move to do before you go throw your friends, your family, your contacts into that world to go hand over sales to an installer. And I'm grateful for the audit. That audit came back where Freedom was financially safe. They had a very healthy EBITDA, and they kicked out cash as a company. And that's ultimately what led our decision to sell half of VITL to Freedom.
So as you were talking before you, I forgot that transaction happened. My contact at Goodleap used to always tell me, he's like, look, installing is really hard.
Yeah.
Running sales is really hard. Doing both is virtually impossible. and
Nailed it.
And now you're obviously you're on the sales side. I'm sure you're not in meetings about, panel dimensions or things like that. Okay, so and you said something else that jogged my memory, but I forgot what that was. So let's talk about you mentioned cell phones. I tell this story all the time. I'd go into a cell phone store. I got my kids think it's hysterical. I got my first cell phone at 27.
Oh,
well, my 9-year-old, should I call you? Right?
Hey, life was simple. It was beautiful before the cell phones. They're very convenient. They solve so many problems. But do you remember the days, JP? We'd hang out with friends. Parents never knew where we were, and we just were there. And
we got home safe.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Those were good days.
Days. Every once in a while somebody broke a bone, but my kids, if they leave the house, they got their device on them.
Correct.
I always tell the story. I backpack Europe at 17. I brought a 16-year-old with me. 48 days, no cell phones, no internet, $2,000 a URL pass. We'll see you. Like, we had some basic ideas of where we're going, but
it's amazing.
Yeah, nowadays my kids can't even cross the street without checking the weather on their phone. But I'd walk into a cell phone store and there'd be like a kiosk or a TV screen with all these waiting lists, and there would be like 3 of us out of 100 that had a cell phone, and everybody else was looking or thinking or trying to justify, I already got a home phone bill that's $50 a month. What do I want a $70 bill for? I don't know how many minutes like all this confusion around buying. And that's why the rip was so high on selling cell phones back in the day. Now you walk into the Apple store and it's more packed than a cell phone store ever was. And the average device count is probably, I'm guessing, 2 point something per person.
Yeah.
Right. And so the industry has changed to a point where it's completely commoditized. Everybody knows what a cell phone is, the value. There is no more home phone. I'm not saying there's not going to be any more energy companies out there because we use the infrastructure and the wires and the cables and the transformers, all that stuff. But I still think, as you said, that solar is in this infinitesimal state. There is no consumer compliance or there's nobody consumer advocacy that's out there.
Right.
And I've seen some horrible contracts. Like, I can't believe somebody signed off on that homeowner.
That's right.
So next 5 years, solar is going to rebound. How do you see that rolling out?
Your example you gave, there's not a better one, because that is where solar is. And again, the reason it's such a good example, we had a chance to live through both eras before cell phones kind of existed. And now you can't imagine, it's weird if someone doesn't have a cell phone. And so that is where solar is. Right now, the adoption is low because it's a very it's a very pull industry where you have to go grab customers and get them to buy. They don't understand it. It could be confusing. The more people start to save in going solar, and that is our whole mission at Freedom Forever, is how do we go get economies of scale, kind of like a Walmart or an Amazon? How do we go get enough volume in one location, one place, to make our costs efficient and effective, to get the cost lower. So going solar in any state, a customer saves money. Because when a customer saves money with this product, it's easier for them to sign up. It's more of a logical purchase. And that's our whole mission. And so I love that analogy, because as that continues to happen in this space, people save money, they get off the grid during outages, especially as the world kind of goes through the times it does. Solar is becoming more and more popular. And Warren Buffett says this, he's like, this whole solar thing is going to be one of the greatest transfer of wealth that's ever happened in history. And if you look at the billions of dollars that cycle through utility companies, and now a middle option coming into play, which is solar, that is the opportunity. So the next 5 years, those who stay in the craft, they get really good and they pick the right installer, like you said. That installer is safe. They're doing the right moves for the long haul. I'm very, very excited to watch the hundreds and thousands of millionaires that will be created in this space by doing it the right way for the customer and staying in business for the 25 years. And then that consolidation taking place as you stay in the market and you stay in the space.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I remember being introduced to solar, Doug Barnett in a little side office when Vivint was recruiting me, and they didn't know if my group was going to go do solar or smart home or both. And on a window, Doug was like, "This is simply the greatest business model I've ever seen." And with the tax rebates, and it was almost comedy. It was like, how does this even exist? And then, of course, things have changed from that doodle on a wall to, you mentioned states that are going W2. I think Florida's done that with pest control.
Right.
And in my mind, this is just lobbyists of the energy companies that are making it more and more difficult for solar companies to survive because of the billions of dollars that's being transferred from these energy companies. And most people don't know that I'll probably get it wrong, but the energy companies are owned by the government. Is that?
Yep. In certain parts.
Right.
Yeah. Like Warren Buffett owns Utah right now, Rocky Mountain Power, and California's utility. So owned by government agencies and big corporations.
Right. And so if I'm getting strip mined for billions of dollars by this new industry, then I want to make things as difficult as possible for that industry to thrive.
Yeah.
It's almost like the airline war, fare wars. And that's almost, I don't want to say a fair playing field.
Yeah.
But it's the small guys going against, I mean, as much money as in solar, there's probably 100x that's out there fighting against it.
Yeah.
How do you feel your competitive, like what keeps you, you called me last night, you were leaving the office 9 o'clock. I was already back from baseball practice. So I was like, yeah, I remember those days. I just don't want to do that anymore.
That's right.
And good on you, but who knows? Know, if I had your opportunity, I don't know if I could. I still like to be a dad right now. But what is your biggest fear in the solar space right now?
Yeah, this is where, when you know how to play the game's fun. So what people don't understand in solar, it's not an us versus them in all cases. There's areas where the grid is way too taxed. And they're now finding ways, because solar is new for everybody. There's now government subsidies for them to go participate, where they go make solar a win-win to de-lever the grid. And then in some cases, that solar energy, that home becomes a plant that also feeds into the grid for them to go get that energy back. So over the next 5 years, I think you're going to see a lot of collaboration actually take place, where utility companies, solar, they create win-wins. And then for those that cannot get there on a state level or city level, or utility level, you're going to watch solar become more affordable and more effective to go buy for homeowners. And that's still a win, because that delevers the power plant. And then for a homeowner who wants to become their own locally, they get batteries. And you're going to see battery technology continue to evolve, as it already has. I've been in solar now for several years to see where batteries are today, JP, from where they were a while back. It's like any industry. It just keeps evolving. It becomes more efficient, more affordable, and more advantageous for homeowners to get solar. So between the collaboration that's already happening between utility companies and solar options, and where prices are coming in the product of going solar, it is the perfect example when it's to cell phones. Right now, people are still like trying to figure out what it is, but the more people that do it and the more people that go solar, the further all of it's going to come.
So I'm a proponent of solar, but I don't have it on my house here in Utah.
Yeah.
So
we got to change that.
Well, let's walk through this this education piece. So in California, my August energy bill was like $600, and this is back in like 2009, 2010. Solar wasn't even, a thing, and so it would just kill me every summer. I'll be like, look at these bills, and so I was, for probably a year and a half. In fact, I bought a Nest thermostat, pre-ordered. I had to wait 6 months before it show up.
Wow.
So I was Googling I was searching. Google was a thing back then. I was internet searching, browser searching. Phone controllable thermostats, right? Because I got tired of getting out of my couch, adjusting, but I didn't want the big bill. That's when I found the Nest. And then I had energy experts come to my house. I talked about putting like a vacuum seal in my attic and a vacuum seal in my basement to keep out the hot air. I had whole house fans looked at. I had Anderson Windows come and quote me like $70,000 to redo all my windows.
Yeah.
I had ripped out my carpet and had hardwood floors, which made it worse. And so I did 6 windows on the south side. I did that. I put the Nest thermostat in. My bill was still $450. And then Vivint comes into play. Even though I was on the smart home side, I did a PPA at my house. And that year, my August energy bill was $50.
Let's go.
Yeah,
cool.
but then I moved to Utah.
Yeah.
And then the homeowner didn't want to sign the transfer, so I had to buy out my solar. That's a whole other story.
Wow.
Yeah,
That person didn't understand. That's crazy.
He was a contract attorney.
Okay. Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So yeah. So every time I drive by the house, I'm like, that son of he's been getting free power since I sold that place to him.
That's amazing.
But now I get here to Utah, where we have different products. I don't, you've been to my home. My dad still lives with us, but my dad's 84 and he's winning a battle against stage 4 esophageal cancer right now. But I don't, my dad's not there. My wife and I and my 3 kids aren't living in a 9-bedroom home. Yeah. Right. It's too big. It would be, and so I'm not going to be there for 10 years. I said this 2 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
And when I, then I could get solar at cost. Right. I know enough people now I can still do that. But even then, right, to offset my home, it's still like a 10-year debt repayment schedule. And knowing what we know about dealer fees and all that stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna pay cash with it. Like what? Could I get a better? Like all these things are going through my head, and there's no PPA option here. And it's just such a hard market to sell solar in. And I don't know if you guys even sell in Utah.
We do, and there's a PPA option now.
Is there?
Yeah. So I mean,
you get the contract.
Yeah.
You're already counting.
Hey, I'm passionate about this product. The reason why is I'm an investor, and if I can go gain control, guarantee my returns, I'm signing up for that all day long, right? And what we always tell people is you're a renter when you don't have solar. And either you're a renter that has no clue what your landlord's ever going to do. Your landlord might raise your rent the next month, X amount, and what are you going to say? Okay, here's my check. You're just going to pay it.
Right. Or
you want to be an owner and you want to own your home and pay towards equity, right? And so, if you want to do a PPA, the benefit of that is you can go get a rate that you know what it is. You know exactly how it's going to increase year over year over the 25 years. And it's always going to be what a utility rate increase is.
Well, back in 16 or 15, when I did it, there was no increase. It was flat rates.
Yeah, sure. So now there's a little bit of an increase.
Yeah.
But it's predictability, it's control, it's safety. Now for me, I love selling loans just because I want people to pay towards ownership. And in Utah, that's typically what people do. Is Utah specifically, we're a little bit more of a doomsday prep type of state, and so it's get your battery. Solar's not for everyone. If you're trying to do this where our power's pretty cheap here, you're not going to save money out of the gates. But just like if you go buy a product and you're going to get a service out of that product, whether it's something for your home or your vehicle or your family, you're buying something to receive something in return, a service. So if you want to go solar and you want to just own your power, know that if the grid goes out, you are good and there's no worry and you are, saving the planet, then solar's for you in this route. So there's so many there's lots of ways and reasons why people choose solar.
So bringing up the consumer advocacy, if that's not the right I'm looking for, but consumer protection, like many companies will say power goes out and you're covered.
Yeah.
But if it's not sold correctly, installed with the right hardware, you're dead in the water also.
That's right. And this is where, Bruce Lee has a quote I've always loved. He's like, I don't fear a man that knows 10,000 kicks. I fear a man that knows one kick and has just done it 10,000 times.
Right.
And so if you're going to be in the space, this is where, as you bounce from installer to company to company to company, you become very inefficient. You lose credibility because every installer's got different warranties. They have different products they use. I would tell you the greatest way to build something incredible over time is find your tribe, find your place, and then put the blinders on and go all in. Because what happens is you become really good over time with the product you sell for the company you sell it for, and you start to do it better every single day. And in solar, that's the thing I see that gets missed all the time is people aren't aware of the right products to sell in the pitch that they're giving of how the solar system's supposed to work. And that's bad for everybody in the industry. And so take some time to become a professional in this career. And that's why the money is what it is. If it was easy, JP, there would be less commissions available. And so this is a professional sport that takes professional effort to go dominate. And that's what I love about it. I am attracted to that, and I love getting paid professional money.
So let's talk about. I don't want to plant something in your head that's going to keep you up at night.
Yeah.
But a good friend of ours, Eric Nielsen, is coming in at the end of the month to do a podcast.
Love that guy.
About solar, and our paths all crossed at Vivint there. And I used to ask him. I'd ping him every 6 or 8 months when I wasn't sure where I was going to land, and did some work with Eric and totally support what they have going on there. But I used to ask him, hey, what's the number one thing that you're afraid of right now in the industry?
Yeah.
And he'd always give me the same answer.
What was it?
Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, I know.
So, and I
True.
said, what do you mean? He's like, well, he could disrupt this at any given time.
Right.
And so you look at how Tesla is selling solar right now. I haven't looked in a while, but it used to be 2 options, right? 8 kilowatt or 4 kilowatts or 8 kilowatts or whatever it is.
For sure.
Set price that you can't get anywhere else. And sure, we've all sold against them before. They're going to have you add or this and add or that. But at the end of the day, when solar becomes commoditized, when it becomes the cell phone, where you make money in the cell phones now, or selling me a new lightning cable because every 3 years you change the damn accessories or whatever it is, there's going to be another way to detach or clean or service or whatever panels in the future in homes that already have solar. But the way I think we all have to agree that solar is going to be sold 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now is the way that Tesla's doing it.
Right.
So I don't, and who knows, you might be out of the business by the time those two things cross.
Yep.
And in that process, business changes, models change, ancillary products, get branched off, et cetera. And you become like, you're going to be the world's authority on the industry because you're in it. But do you think about that Tesla model and how that is going to disrupt, or are you trying to compete with it?
No question. So we are competing with it. We have another e-commerce brand here.
I planted that.
Yeah.
As I was saying, I was like, oh, I remember that now.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's called the Very Good Solar Company. Great vertical. But this is the question though, JP. If Tesla decides to get in the space with a cheaper, because like an Amazon, I remember when Amazon came in and took our spots over in a Best Buy, they did not care if they lost money. We were trying to make money and they came in and pushed us out. So Elon's in a place where he can go lose money to gain data and get it where it needs to be eventually. But this is the thing, who installs Elon's panels and batteries? He has to have a service company install it and service it for 25 years. And this is what nobody talks about. And this is ultimately why we chose to partner with Freedom. You go look at any business like a Walmart or an Amazon. Once they're big enough and they have the operation and everything established, they now just become the magnet that people go to do that part of the equation. And so one day, if unlike Eric's fear, if Tesla wanted to come disrupt the space, they absolutely could. But they would have to go find someone to install it. And then they'd have to find someone to go service it. And the margin it takes to go stand that up nationally to do it right and effectively, it's hard. And right now, Freedom's in 35 states, and they've already done that. And the bigger they're getting, the more effective they're getting with the costs. And that's our goal. So you talk about those paths crossing, we're trying to make those paths one of the same. Over 5 years, due to volume, we want to go get those margins for a customer to go solar through this vertical as cheap as possible, where nobody can go compete.
So let me, I'm gonna disagree here for a second, because when you understand solar, you just said something that I don't believe to be true. Now, I believe Aaron Lee believes it to be true.
Yeah.
But when Biden changed it from 25 to 30%, the world was like, homeowners are getting a bigger rebate. And those of us who know the industry were like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Salespeople are going to make more commission. They're going to sell at the exact same price. And that rebate is just going to, they're just, hey, if you're paying $100 now, I'm still giving you 90.
For sure.
Right. But I'm just charging you more to still give you 90.
Yep.
Right. And so I believe that the industry, the people are going to be, the last people to be affected are going to be the banks.
Yeah.
Right. But the salespeople, what their commissions are going to have to come down because there's only cost and hard costs do increase. And right now the blood's in the water. So if you can sell, you're selling solar to make the big commissions. If you can find a company that doesn't go BK and they'll pay you.
Yeah.
But ultimately, those margins, I mean, it used to be $500 to sell a cell phone. You could sell as many appointments as you took in a day, right? Like if you can sell quick, you educating people fast, you could sell 15, 20 cell phones in a day and make ridiculous money.
Yeah.
And so do you believe that commissions are going to come down?
Yeah, I think as solar gets cheaper with economies of scale, your basis now is lower where you're starting to go sell your product. And then I think as regulation continues to hit this industry, price caps, which by the way, I wish those were already here. Price caps will be inserted in certain utilities where you can't even submit a solar project to that utility if it's sold over a certain price per watt. And that's a good thing. That's there to protect the consumer. So I think price caps are going to come out. And as those come out, and I hope companies do these, I know we are at Freedom and VITL, that's going to compress the market because people are now getting solar for cheaper, and reps are still making great money because their basis is lower now. So that's the whole model, is how do we go get enough volume in one place so we can lower the cost of going solar, so our red line or our baseline is lower, and then we go put a cap in there where we don't screw the customer. We're selling only so high, but because our red line is lower, we're still making great money. That's my feeling. Now, one other thing I'll say, when I was in security, I don't know if you remember when Simply Safe came out with their product. And I remember I was so scared. I'm like, how am I going to be on the door selling someone at $120 a month when they can go online and buy this Simply Safe package for, $20 a month? And at the end of the day, in every industry, there's always going to be your Crickets and your AT&Ts, your Safe Streets, your Simply Safe or your Vivint's. And so you do pay for what you get in some cases. And I think that there's always going to be just different customers in every industry. There's always going to be those customers that want to buy online. They don't want a salesperson, and it is going to be a little cheaper. If the install is good, the install is good. There's always going to be that, but Simply Safe never took away from us. We still thrived selling at 120.
They educated the market.
That's right. They did. It helped us. And so that is my opinion, is those that are still confused and they need that consultative journey to buy solar, the door-to-door space is never going to go away ever for going solar, ever. It is always going to exist. And that's why when I say, if you know how to play the game is fun. There's no better time right now than now, in my opinion, to get into solar, learn the craft, become a professional. And as it continues to expand and evolve, you're the leader, you're the company that gets all of the people that want to do this as a career.
Yeah, and as I would say the exact same thing if I was running a solar company.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I will say there's always trade-offs, and if you want to sell a product that has high commissions or fair commissions, because commissions that will pay you fairly if you treat the customer fairly, transactionally, if you can find an install partner that can get your installs in and all that, I think it's fantastic. But you have to measure your trade-offs, meaning if you want to get paid more per watt, right? What is the trade-off?
Yeah.
Right? Is it if you can go get a stripped down deal but buy your own polos,
Correct.
right? Or have to use your own software, or you can pay for professional systems, and those systems come with a margin. And you and I talked about, why I'm here at Door to Door Experts versus doing my own thing. At the end of the day, I don't want to do marketing. I don't want to do sales. Yeah. I want to positively impact the world and change the course of history. Door to Door Experts has a huge audience. And Sam was a great spot for me to share my knowledge. And I'm like, what's the trade-off? I measured the trade-off and I'm like, totally worth it.
Yeah.
And so people have to measure the trade-off on which solar company they pick. Do you want the bare bones stripped down version because you're a one-man show that flies to Bakersfield every every month for 4 days to go sell solar and fly home, right? Or do you want culture, team, environment, business partners? Like, there's just your trade-offs, right?
Totally agree. Well, one last plug I'll put. You know, I say it all the time. How you do anything's how you do everything. We did want to create a unicorn at VITL, and this is why, you know, Tyler and I picked each other to kind of go work with. When you can go create dealer-like margins, because the reason people want to go start their own solar companies, they want the margin. But when you have the margin, it's up to you to go create the culture. And sometimes that culture is very expensive and more expensive than you want to go do to try to do it right.
And you don't know how, you don't have an experience.
Yep, and you don't do it right. And so people get a poor experience, but good margin. And so when Freedom came to approach us, they're like, guys, you've created the culture. You have your onboarding tech. You have good payroll transparency. You have a university with hours of videos to teach people how to be a leader, from door setting to knocking doors, closing, all the verticals. You guys have it. Let's go back you financially so you can go do like an Amazon type approach and get bigger. So now your growth pays the bills because you got the growth, but let's go back you financially for a time, a year. So that way you go create dealer margins. You create a pay scale that is no different than becoming a dealer. The margins are there now with the culture, and you have the unicorn. And that's why we've exploded in growth. And so I would tell anyone that's running a company, go create a great culture, provide great margins if you're doing solar for the rep, because if the rep can win in the home, that is the key. If the rep can win in the home, he's given the customer the right deal that makes it to install. They're confident, they're making money to go to the next home and the next home and the next deal. That is the key. And too often where companies go wrong, they're like, I need to keep all the margin on my side. And when they do that, the rep isn't empowered to go win for the customer. And that is where it all starts. You got to empower the rep.
So I want to wrap up with the business owners that are watching. I get a text message, I don't know, 3.5 months ago from you. And it's like, hey, when is Door-to-Door Con?
Yeah.
And I gave you a date, and your response was, well, I'm planning our year and I want to be certain. And I can't tell you, like, that one piece, like the businesses that we consult here at Door-to-Door Experts, that one piece, like if you plan your calendar out, because you need to let your reps know so you can book your travel, you like to piggyback your annual award off of Door-to-Door Con, take advantage of the fact that 3,000 people are going to be here. And you learn that institutionalized working for a large company. And that is something I talk a lot about is planning out your calendar. But it was such a great moment for me to know. I don't know how many people I've told about that story when I'm consulting these companies about, they go, well, why is it important? I'm like, well, let me tell you why it's important. Right? It's not just you tell people, but they have spouses, they have kids, they got anniversaries, they get birthday parties. If they don't know 6 months in advance or a year in advance when major events are, and then you spring it on them, what you think is 6 weeks notice is enough. My calendar's planned out for 6 weeks, right? And so what a great lesson for those business owners that you know, how much top line revenue is VITL going to do this year?
Over 160 million.
And this 3-year-old company doing now over 160 million bucks. And one of the foundational pieces is to map out the calendar for everybody that's involved in the company.
I love that you highlighted that, JP, because what happens is speed of the leader, speed of the business. If you at the top show that you're planning and you're forecasting and you're ahead of the strategy, that will trickle down to every person in your organization and take you to amazing places. And too often leaders get stuck always managing in the business, and they don't take enough time to actually work on the business. And so you nailed it. Little plug for Door-to-Door Con.
Yeah, I was going to say, my podcast team's going to kill me if I don't say, hey, Door-to-Door Con in January, make sure you're there. It's going to be an awesome event.
We love it. We've done this event now for years. We plan it around Door-to-Door Con every single time. It's like a high school reunion if you've been in the space long enough. And so when all of our leaders take the time to fly to our event, we piggyback on the back of Door-to-Door Con. So it's a big part.
That may be the last time I saw you was walking out of the main stage area.
It's good times.
All right. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Aaron Lee, VITL Power. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thank you. Appreciate the time, JP.